So, for those that know me, you'll know that I kind of have what I like to use as a definition for insanity. And my definition of insanity is basically doing the same thing today we did yesterday and the day before that, yet expecting different outcomes or results. The other thing that I firmly believe is that given the number of people presently online today and technology being what it is, that there really is no excuse anymore for ignorance. And to me, and this may sound a little harsh, and I apologize to those who can't understand this principle, but to me, I don't feel that people uneducated about certain things are ignorant, which is normally the nicer term that we use for those people. To me, in a digital age where virtually anything is available at your fingertips for you to learn about anything you could ever want to know about, it's no longer a case of ignorance. It's a case of chosen stupidity. Now, of course, this doesn't apply to the people that are not online, okay? But for the very large population of this planet that is, with the readily available translation tools, there's really no excuse for anybody to be online and lacking in knowledge. All anyone needs is a drive to be informed. Otherwise, you're choosing to be stupid. Sorry. So, given that basis for this, what I want to go into is basically something that I was thinking about, and I call the time for mass public chosen insanity must end. Society, with doctors and government, are so quick to jump to conclusions about mental disorders and the maladies of society, but how often do these captains of industry stop and think about their failed actions and the part that plays in the mental health of a nation? With the fear-mongering assault of lamestream media, the rising police state that increasingly violates human and civil rights, government's own violations against citizens, and not listening to the masses, is it any wonder why people's psyche suffers an onslaught of negativity, causing such great numbers of people to either curl up into little balls or lash out violently because of the unjust and inhumane treatment they endure? Everything is so boiled down to controlling things through chemical means, through medications, psychiatric treatment plans, and funneling yet more money into the pockets of the medical complex without any real concern for addressing the real roots of the issues. As violence escalates, rather than dig to the root of the issues that create the travesties within society, government is more concerned, evidently, with continuing to do what it damn well pleases rather than look at their own role in the mental breakdown of the masses. Is it that hard to reason that many people act violently just because they realize that the government they've been conditioned to trust throughout their life shouldn't be trusted and doesn't give a shit about them? Is it that hard to reason and connect the dots that show part of the mental condition of the masses results because of the treatment by those they've trusted? Is it that hard to realize that people lash out in desperation because the system has failed them? This is not rocket science. It's common sense. Place a person under pressure for long periods and the effects manifest in antisocial behavior. But rather than fix itself, government, in concert with the medical complex, would rather attempt controlling the situations they are partly responsible for creating through foreign substances rather than common sense of fixing the system. This clearly shows their intent, and it's not for the people, but an elite few that benefit and pay them for their misdeeds against humanity. Why is it so hard for the masses to realize this, band together in an effort to save us all, and flush the present system? Have we all become insane, doing the same things today that we did yesterday and the day before, yet expecting a different outcome? As a prime example, the present debate of gun control. Look at history. We've tried to modify gun laws for decades in an attempt to fix the violence and save lives. How has that eradicated the problem? Once again, we're letting the elite manipulate us through conditioned response and emotions to their dialogue, which has never fixed the problem. We're once again doing the same thing we've done throughout decades, expecting a different outcome. This is insanity. Not once yet have we forced the dialogue to include the effects of medication as it relates to the problem. Not once have we forced the dialogue to include more cost-effective access to mental health services so that maybe some in need of help might actually be able to seek help instead of violence as a solution to their problems. Many suggest socialism as a fix to such system failures, but we've seen time and again where government forced socialism becomes a failure. I'd suggest that individually chosen social responsibility is an answer, but at the roots, social responsibility is nothing more than a consideration for our fellow man and how our actions affect others. It's a situation where each person chooses to realize the potential ripple effects in each of their choices and how those ripple effects others. It's realizing that helping others get what they need tends building a culture where those helped feel a desire or obligation, depending on their morality, to repay the kindness shown to them. It's not a bad thing, as long as it's not a forced thing. Business schools teach this social idea in the premise that building a successful business is founded in the ability to identify individual needs and help people fulfill those needs. Unfortunately, many businesses have bastardized this process because of their greed, but at the root, it's still a social principle, and a sound one at that. Another consideration, individual chosen social responsibility is a hedge against greed as well. If individuals began acting socially responsible, that would lead to groups acting socially responsible because groups are composed of people. As increasing numbers of people act socially responsible, people around them begin to see the benefits through being socially responsible, including the potential positive effects on communities. If we'd recognize more people doing the right thing, which is in basic social responsibility, people might begin to realize there are more ways of being successful than owning the most toys or hoarding the most money in their bank accounts. When people begin to realize that social capital holds more value than financial capital, greed of money would turn to greed of social capital. What might happen in a world where people competed to one up good acts instead of the accumulation of material things? The problem in this idea is the present state of society and the actions of the masses. We become so disconnected as a people that unless something is happening directly to us or to someone we know, it's not an issue. This lack of foresight towards future generations is going to be a large detriment to future generations yet to come. Going back to our present gun law debates, besides the emotional manipulations, many see it as a non-issue either because they do not own any guns, or they're pro-guns, or they're anti-guns because of the damage to society. Most seem to live in a vacuum, assuming that today's world will be what tomorrow's world eventually becomes. Through this vacuum and myopic view, they fail seeing potential ways that are hamstringing things for future generations. Just because one thinks that we should need no guns today, or further curtailing of Second Amendment rights today, doesn't mean the same will be so tomorrow, next week, next year, next decade, next millennium, etc. Breaking away from the gun regulation debate analogy, it applies to all possible issues, and all possible issues, although they not affect you or someone you know now, could very well affect them later, or could affect your future offspring. It's time that people start to fully realize and appreciate this. Technology has its blessings and curses, and this seems to be one of them. In it, depending on what one uses it for, it becomes a time sink depriving us of interpersonal contact. This only serves to further fuel the disconnect with reality and humanity as well. Various religions and New Age health practices teach balance for a reason. It is an integral part of life in all things. A key to the issues is chosen individual social responsibility. It will help build a brighter future for generations to come. People, for the love of humanity, would you please stop being insane? It's time to look at the real roots of things instead of the emotional, conditioned responses typical in most situations. They're trying to lead us around by the noses with emotion to keep us distracted from the real roots that might actually fix situations. The elite don't want real fixes because real fixes would devastate entire industries. If things were actually being fixed at the root, there'd be less need of medications. There'd be less need of hospitalization. There'd be less security systems sold, less weapons sold, less ammunition, and less of many more things that would no longer be needed in a truly advanced society. This is not rocket science. It's personal choice, individual actions, people choosing to unite instead of divide. If you really want to see change, stop being insane and force them to talk about the real roots of issues, not the surface distractions that keep them in business. Think about it.